It seems Apple is paving the way to change the Mac's processor architecture once again. So we're bringing in Adrian Kingsley-Hughes here to chat with on this one. And Adrian, we've seen shifts in the past with Apple, but not this wide-ranging. So just start off with what you're hearing and just how big this change could be.
Well, what I'm hearing is that it's essentially every chip that Apple uses in everything except its Macs is designed by Apple. And the Macs are an exception there because they're Intel-based processors, and Apple is very much at the whim of Intel in terms of a tick-tock of kind of what happens in terms of upgrades and what goes into processors. It seems that they're willing now to make that shift over to ARM technology processors. It's been coming for a long time. The rumors have been around for a long time, but now it seems like we're seeing little bits fall into place in terms of both the hardware and the software. It's very different to when Apple moved over in 2005 from PowerPC over to Intel, though, because back then Apple was essentially just Mac. Now we've got iOS, which you could argue is much bigger than Mac, and much of this move is essentially being driven by Apple wanting to make Mac more like iOS rather than let's shift Mac over into something that's different or maybe better. It's definitely a move to make Mac more aligned with iOS.
All right, and talk a little bit about what do you think this means for buyers, of course, because lots of questions still up in the air here.
Well, I think it is going to introduce some element of confusion for buyers. If you're somebody who's just upgrading every year, every 2 years, it's no big deal because you can upgrade when the new Macs come out. But what I'm seeing a lot with Mac developers and Mac power users are essentially that they're holding on to software for a very long time. If you're buying 1 or 2 Macs, maybe it's not that much of a big deal, but if you're somebody who's equipping a big shop up with 10, 20, 50 Macs, it might not be the right time to upgrade. It might be a good time to make those old Macs last for a couple more years and then upgrade when the changes come along.
All right, so Adrian, it sounds like I guess a logical next question to ask or have you expand on here. Do you think Apple will take the App Store route like they did with iOS?
I think the Mac is an exception in the Apple lineup at the moment, that you can download software from pretty much anywhere, buy software from pretty much anywhere. And that means that Apple's cut out of a very lucrative 30% App Store sale. And while Apple does have its own Mac App Store, it's nowhere near as big as I think Apple expected it to be at this point. I think a switch over to ARM, especially as that would involve a big operating system switch, could be the time that they say every bit of software that you buy has to go through the Mac Store. Yes.
Yeah, and Adrian, we've talked a lot about this slipping iPhone sales. So this could be, though, a lucrative revenue stream for Apple.
Could be very lucrative, especially when you look at high-end software such as Adobe Creative Cloud and stuff like that. While it'd still be possible to buy licenses outside of Apple for that, a lot of people might decide that the convenience of buying it direct through the App Store might actually just be beneficial for them. And that's a big chunk of change for Apple at a time when iPhone sales are slipping.
All right, Adrian. Well, of course, per the norm, Apple does not comment on rumors or future plans, so we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out. Be sure to check out Adrian's full article on ZDNet.